A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Kanji Shah, General Manager for Content Strategy at Stratsy, and it gives me immense pleasure in welcoming you to today's exclusive webinar on enabling business outcomes at the speed of innovation. I welcome you on behalf of Dell Technologies, AMD, and Strategic. Ladies and gentlemen, while no one can predict the future, we all recognize the value of agile technology to business transformation and unleash innovation while new business models thrive on IT to demonstrate great skill and achieve their goals, especially in a more connected and data-driven world. High-performance computing is a key component of the digitization of industry and innovation and competitiveness. The convergence of HPC with emerging technologies such as AI, data analytics, and cloud computing can unleash a new era that allows the industry to scale computationally, to build deep learning algorithms, and take advantage of high volumes of data. We have amongst us eminent business, IT, and technology leaders who've come together to discuss and share their points of view on what are the best ways to reduce complexity across all workloads and accomplish more. How does autonomous infrastructure with proactive resilience help business innovate in the best ways and grow? We'll get to know all this and much more through today's webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, you may address your questions to our speakers using the chat feature. With that, let's begin with our first session. Please join me, ladies and gentlemen, as I welcome Mr. Mariar Patel, Group Chief Information Officer, Digital Solutions for Gina & Company. With him in conversation, we have Mr. Sumit Malhotra, Chief Information Officer and Head Cloud Platform and Site Reliability for Times Internet. And moderating the session, we have with us Mr. Arjun Vishwanathan, who is the Chief Knowledge Officer at Strategic. Over to you, Arjun.
Hello and welcome. I'm Arjun Vishwanathan. And today I have two very eminent CIOs from within industry to talk about a very interesting set of matters related to the whole concept of data-infused workload transformation and high-performance computing. Because increasingly, as businesses evolve in digital economies, organizations have begun to realize that workloads and data have pretty much grown in very uneven or dissimilar ways. With the IT department managing a heterogeneous mix of hardware architecture, operating systems, and a growing application landscape, multiple complexities seem to be emerging towards the end aim of simplifying workloads and building efficiencies. In many ways, this workload diversity increases the stress on the IT function as well as the likelihood of human error. In addition, older hardware typically, as we are all aware, has a large facility footprint, consumes more power, and requires more cooling than a consolidated solution using virtualization platforms, and of course, talks about the beginning of the use and deployment of high-performance computing. And to talk to me about all of this and much more, please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome in no specific order, Mariar Patel, Group CIO, Digital Solutions for the Gina Group. Mariar, sir, welcome, privileged and delighted.
Thank you, Arjun. Thank you for having us here.
Thank you, sir. And another very eminent gentleman from industry, very old friend, Sumit Malhotra, CIO for Times Internet Limited. Sumit, welcome. Equally delighted and privileged, sir.
Thank you, Vijay. Thank you.
Wonderful. Gentlemen, I'm going to now put the next 30 odd minutes to good use. Mariar, sir, if I could come to you, this whole concept of digitization, obvious trends towards moving into a multi-cloud kind of an architecture. Now, all of this, when you kind of very fundamentally look at it, has been made possible by the judicious, prudent leveraging of data that organizations are today producing. In that sense, how do you see simplifying workloads and making it relevant and accessible where it is required? And the whole concept of workload transformation, which is data infused, become more critical as the days and the weeks go by?
Yeah, Arjun, I think it's a pertinent question in the minds of the CIOs nowadays, is that the dynamics have changed as to how we were operating earlier. So if you look at a scenario A, which was operating in-house data centers created internally, looking at managing data, distributing data internally. Now the scenario, if you look at it, is completely transformed into a hybrid cloud setups. Why? Because there is a business demand.
Indeed.
That business demand specifically says that I need things as of yesterday. And when you have such a demand, the dynamics are obviously going to be rescaled, re-architected, and then obviously you need to look at realigning yourself as to how you're going to provide the complete application infrastructure and obviously data aligned to it. So when I look at it today, there is no choice for CIOs but to operate on cloud setups.
True.
It could be private, there could be industry segment specific, but things have really moved ahead. So having said that, we are on a hybrid cloud setup, things are going to be something that we will have to program and plan properly. So one is that you say that, okay, I'm going to adopt and move to a hybrid cloud setup. Second is that how would you manage data? And there should be a proper specific roadmap into how you're going to provide. Number one is reporting. Obviously, reporting of data can be programmed from where and how it is.
Indeed.
But when you look at a consolidated manner as to how you're going to visualize it, as in a group formulation of visualizing data, that's going to be a task. So what is the amalgamation of those disparate systems which you are going to come and view it as a one window? And that plan is something going to be very important today. And probably I am one of the few players in logistics who operate on complete financial management on cloud. We have setups of 3PL just-in-time units, warehousing units, which are operating on various cloud platforms. So the need of the R is to see that business gets the data that they want. How do you manage? Probably I can take it up in the next questions and what to do, Arjun. That's my first take.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, sir, because Sumit, I bring this to you also in the sense that with workloads today becoming more complex and at times internet and in that industry, you'd know that more than anybody else because of the availability of vast amounts of data. How do you see this whole concept of data infused intelligent workloads manifesting itself within the organization? And clearly, what are the benefits to the end user for a CIO to embark on this complex journey at all?
Well, I think there are only two reasons to take this journey. One is the value which we can create for our end customers. And second, making it more resilient. In terms of value to our customers, I think we operate like a plethora of digital products, be it a news segment or personal finance and various others. So the idea is to give an amazing personal experience to our users, which means reduced latency in which people can reach to our application quicker, faster, so that they don't have any wait time. So hence there is no drops. So that requires workloads to run on the edge of the network, and also which needs to seamlessly communicate with, let's say, centralized cloud deployed. And while this is all happening, you want to make sure that the whole thing is resilient and well deployed across multiple clouds. So while this is easier to say, it's very difficult to achieve. Because when you talk about agility, you end up deploying ready-made solution from cloud. And when you start deploying ready-made solution from cloud, you end up getting married to one. So now,
very true.
And when you end up married to one, there is no resiliency, right? You are just married to one. What can you do? If one player has an outage, there is no way you can maintain a 5/9 availability. If you are, I think you're a fortunate one, but generally it becomes very, very difficult. And then obviously there are many complexity related to compliance and other things which also kicks in. The idea is to be portable as much as you can. So as I say, and I probably am repeating here as well, don't get married to any cloud. If you want to have do affiliations, do affairs with each cloud, but don't get logged in. And if you do, make sure you understand the pros and cons of both, and you write your application in a way in which you can get out of it at any point of time.
Well, in a more to lend some brevity to it, you're saying friends with benefits should be the model. But no, actually, that's very interestingly put because, Maria, sir, I must come to you. You see, we've spoken about data. We've been speaking about data for ages now. And it's obviously vast, fairly copious volumes of data that we are generating today. In that sense, Maria, sir, what in your view is the need to equally modernize compute? Because without the armory, the weapon by itself is of no use. And therefore, in that sense, how do you see the emergence of high performance computing or converged computing come into play towards a larger good?
So, Arjun, if you look at if I am a CEO of a company and I say I want to look at an application and availability of my application with data, I would look at only one point: speed of availability of data. The context of a speed is going to be one of the biggest factor for all of us in whatever segment that you are in today. So if you look at a delivery segment, we expect 15 minutes, 30 minutes delivery. How does it happen? It happens on a platform, right? When the data is available, it is controlled on a platform. Every step is tracked. And then obviously you work out a TAT for a delivery. So this is just one example, or probably any industry we look at it, a banking or an insurance or a media industry today. The speed is going to be one of the biggest factors. So when I talk about it today, the data is lying in silos. See, for today, I operate terabyte of data for all these particular applications that I run and serve to my customers. But that's not it. Today we have CCTV recording data, we have application related data, we have data which needs to be used for all the government regulated customs requirement. And that particular, when you try and converge and see that what could be one of the biggest area that you can look at is the speed of computation. So Arjun, we are one of the few freight forwarders who are now looking at transforming some of our very critical applications. And our roadmap started with moving towards Oracle NetSuite. That's one of the most equipped application profiles that I tried to close it 1.5 years back, and we went live on this particular platform. And of course, Sumit, you also mentioned about having tied up with a service provider, but there are no options today. See, today you need to move, and when you look at it, obviously there could be certain points which you need to cover up yourself as a customer and say that yes, but practically there are no big choices if you need to move quickly. So when I build a platform today, I am going to build a platform which caters to almost my 75 to 80% of my requirement, where I would be doing a lot of simulations internally on a new platform. And those are the standards. When I compare myself, I say that speed is going to be one of the most critical factors. Like, for example, we have a data which we send out to all the customers. Today, we have a lot of post-shipment documents data that we shipped out. There are a lot of scanning records which we maintain of all the documents in our system. So we are talking about tons of data. But if my mind goes as a CEO to look after data and hyperconvergence, I would say that availability should be clear as a roadmap, no loss of data. Second is speed to operate. These are the two things I would like to say.
No, I couldn't agree with you more, sir, because Sumit, you see, I come to you with the same question on high performance or converged computing, because increasingly in the digital workspace that all of us exist and operate in, there's been an emergence of a new set of words in the lexicon. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics to a large degree, cloud, of course, we've already mentioned. All of this increasingly make the whole concept of the adoption of high performance computing much more perhaps easier than earlier. But in that sense, how in your and what really is your guidance on how to even approach this journey towards figuring out in a prudent manner uh, where compute has to be deployed relevantly so that it achieves the maximum optimized good?
Well, I think,
Fundamentally, I'm asking you, how do you figure out what workloads to prioritize?
well, I think it depends on a particular use case. So let's say if you have a use case in which latency is way more important,
Yeah,
you would like to deploy it on the edge. If you have um, if you have workloads which are you want to sit like within your office, you probably would put it on a private cloud. And if you want um, uh, tools like a CRM or a business suite to be deployed, you would probably put it in a public cloud or a cloud which you would may call it a hybrid cloud.
indeed.
So I think the the big challenge which most companies now face is that there are all three kinds of use cases for applicable for everyone. So now you have applications which are deployed on the edge, you have applications which are deployed on public cloud, and then you have deployed application deployed on private cloud, and probably some SaaS clouds as well, which you are using. Now with environments loading in all four layers, how do you make sure they are always available? Um, you have uh, and you have a control of all three clouds in terms of security, speed to access, and performance. Now, I think that's one of the challenges which many new solutions in this domain, HPC domain, actually solve, in which people enable us to orchestrate and deploy multiple solutions through a single window. So, and the big thing is that they allow you to collect telemetry from all these sources and have one single bird eye view of how where things are going wrong for you, instead of looking at like five different places or four different places. And this is important for especially from a perspective when you actually are chasing an availability times of 5 nines or let's say closer to 5 nines, because there is no way if you have these disparate systems in which telemetry and everything is separate, you can connect these and ensure that availability and access to of your applications to the end user.
No, it's actually fantastically mentioned because, Maria, sir, I must ask you, while all of this is true, isn't it perhaps, and please do correct me as violently as you want if I am incorrect here, is that a lot of organizations continue to struggle with poor data reliability, unscalable infrastructure, management complexities, excessive maintenance overheads, unrealized value, in which is perhaps true. In all of this, how do you kind of bring this together to navigate uh, avoiding a lot of this? Fundamentally, what's your guidance to a new emerging generation of CIOs and IT leaders, including your peers, on how to go about it? Because a lot of this is reality too.
Arjun, the times are changing. In reality today, adoptions of systems were primarily focused to large enterprises.
Mm.
Having cloud platforms today, SMEs have now become leaders in adopting new technologies. And if you look at the concentration of the OEMs, the large OEMs, they have a very strong focus on this on the SME segment. Having said that, today most of the companies would be working on systems.
Indeed.
Whether they would be working on the SAPs or the Oracles of the world or Microsoft platforms, a lot of players would be also operating on their own homegrown application development.
Absolutely.
If you look at a large segment, I would say almost more than 50% of the players of this SME and the lower segment of industry would be operating on their own home-based application. They are very comfortable with it, let me tell you. And I would say that each one would have a plan as to what needs to be done on their data. And then probably working in that direction, because today business demands are becoming very, very dynamic, and and the probably last segment of our companies are ownership-driven individuals whose demands are very, very high, if you look at it. And everybody is now understood that yes, adopting technology is going to be one of the most prime focused areas.
Of course.
My fear on the on the point of artificial intelligence would be that more or less people are doing a lot of stuff on this. My artificial intelligence is not focused on OCR needs and input of data. Most of the companies, everybody who go in artificial intelligence क्या provide करता है? Okay, आपका document read करता है, उसको आपको data provide करता है, आप input कर दो, भाई खत्म हो गया, artificial intelligence काम खत्म हो गया. I think that is something that probably there is a long way ahead to move forward as a use case. So Sumit has clearly mentioned use cases are going to be very important in each of your industry, and we have been early adopters as a logistics company. Arjun, so probably the point which comes into very, very important as a focus is today, the CIOs have to grapple with disparate data, number one, availability of data, protection of data, security being a main concern of data availability.
Indeed, indeed.
And probably a great amount of focus we as CIOs have to go through is see that there is no leakages, adoption of platforms which are going to be resilient. Again, Sumit mentioned that particular point. I'm very happy with that particular point, where availability is prime, no matter what happens to you and what you do at the back end. Organizations will not come and tell you कि बाबा आपने ये implement किया, उसके बाद क्या हो गया भाई, डेटा तो डाउन हो गया, अभी मेरे को बताओ क्या करना है. So I think those are some of the focus areas CIOs we need to take care that whatever you implement, business is not going to give you a second chance into saying that the data is not available. I think this says a lot about how you need to move forward in each of your directions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, bang on. Sumit, your views on that?
Well, I think there are a lot of things which we need to do to be prepared or be future ready. I think one of the thing which is being talked all across is to be multi-cloud. I think it's a journey. It probably cannot be done overnight. You probably are currently on one public cloud or one private cloud. There's no way overnight you can switch to and be a hybrid cloud.
True.
It's a journey, and I think one needs to understand the risk of taking the journey and the benefit of the journey. Benefits are like well talked about, in which you'll actually have better resiliency. You will not have all eggs in your one basket. You will be able to leverage the best of the both worlds and many things. But I think one should also be aware of the risk. Let's say if you are managing an hybrid cloud, do you have the skills to manage two different clouds? Do you have enough tools or visibility built in, or a layer of software built in which pulls telemetry from all these places and then gives you a single bird's eye view? So I think it's important for you to invest in those tools if you want to and reduce that risk if you want to embark that journey, or at least make a conscious choice saying, yeah, we understand the risk of being tied to one cloud, but right now I think that's more beneficial for us rather than taking the journey. So I think it's value-driven decisions are very, very important for a CIO or any industry leader, especially taking a multi-cloud journey. And there are many HPC solutions which helps you or simplify the journey for you. And I think they're worth evaluating, and they are right now, I think it's probably the talk in town.
Interesting, because there's a question that immediately popped into my mind. Mariar sir, I'm going to bring that to you. It's often been said that, deploying HPC resources kind of consumes too much time, and organizations and IT functions and IT departments don't have the necessary resources to be able to manage that. In that sense, how do you balance the need versus perhaps some of the more seeming operative challenges in getting the job done?
When I say hyper convergence of data within my team, they would say, "Sir, ये क्या है? क्या करना है इसको? सर बताओ, कैसे मैनेज करेंगे?"
Indeed.
हमारे पास ऑलरेडी वर्कलोड है. हमारे पास ऑलरेडी वर्कलोड आपने दे दिया है, आप अभी एक बार आपको रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी दे रहे हैं. So my point is that go to the person who's going to explain you that very well. See, today when we're talking about hyperconvergence, we are talking about a layer of a situation which needs
True.
to be implemented within your organization so that you have a better control of your data. And obviously, to avoid duplication, avoid misrepresentation, and today there are a lot of external entities your data is talking to. So audit is going to be very, very important on the data. Internal, external, whatever audit happens, both operationally as well as financially, plays a big role, Arjun, today. We go through a lot of ISO standards ourselves. So the point which comes into a picture is that our partnerships basically on hybrid cloud setups, we've scaled up over a period of time. So there are certain strategic decisions that we have done. You rightly mentioned that you need to scale up, knowing both pros and cons, and then move towards it. So the partners do a good job into what needs to be suggested, and not many partners say that I want to sell a box. I think the
Right.
solution, the architecture is going to be very, very important as to what you set up, because each of the situation, mine would be different, Sumit's setup would be different, or any other segment would be different. So I think you need to spend a lot of time into a decision that is going to be fruitful over a period of time. And the time is essence as to what you implement. So probably you can start small, check out how it is going to work, and then probably look at a computation which is required into your deployments. Because I say computation, compute required for your requirement is equal to the time required to churn that data and then represent rightly in the fastest manner of time.
Very true. No, very true. Because I do have a view on the clock, gentlemen. Sumit, I come to you now with a fairly important question, which is that we've, over the last 20, 25 minutes, we've established the fact that, high performance compute, the multi-cloud orchestration, all of these are imperatives. But let's also face it, at the end of the day, an organization only has finite investment ability. In that sense, Sumit, what is your advice to an emerging generation of IT leaders on how to balance need, urgency, criticality with fiscal prudence?
Well, I think there are terms called FinOps and many things which are being talked about. Uh, and many new age enterprises are already aware of those, and they already have systems which keep an eye on their cloud spend and then help them optimize it and make sure the value which they are generating out of their existing investments, and be it a IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS, is actually very, very clear to the management and everyone across. But I think there are things which I think it's when you take a cloud journey, you have to balance between agility and cost. Um, so not everything needs to be agile. So you
Indeed.
don't need to pay for everything, because when you ask for agility, when you want every application to be auto scalable, um, in which you have no predictability of workloads, you end up paying a lot to the cloud provider for covering you for that unpredictable.
Absolutely.
But if you are able to make predictions, I think that's where uh, the solutions like HPC, which enables you to get the value of both worlds, in which you can probably run workloads on your private data center or a cloud or edge, all three together. I think that's where it comes in, and I think it's worth exploring, especially if you have workloads which have predictable workload or compute requirements. If you don't, then yes, obviously it becomes a different. Um, but it's important for you to keep that factor in mind, because um, we have seen multiple times that a cloud of like the cost of running a private cloud versus cost of deploying the same in a public cloud is there is a difference of at least 500 to 700% in many places.
Indeed.
So that's the cost of unpredictability, my friends. You need to bake in when you make that decision
Oh,
of
true.
what value that cloud is providing.
I couldn't agree more at all. But that I think pretty much is what we have time for. But a quick question there, both of you, Maria, sir, with your permission, if I could come to you first. You're on mute, sir. When you look at the current state of business in which one is operating, and you also kind of have a fair spectrum into how industry is evolving, how the marketplace is evolving, how consumers are evolving, both B2C as well as B2B. Do you feel as CIOs and IT leaders in your own right that over the course of the next year, perhaps 2023, 24, maybe fairly defining in terms of the kind of investments that IT manages to procure will be far, far more significant than ever before historically?
100%. Arjun, the answer of investment in technology after the COVID wave, probably first and second, has been that today people who have not invested in data, cloud, security, dynamic shift in people adopting platforms.
Absolutely.
I think it's rampantly gone up. And today, without technology in any industry, it's not going to be possible, right?
It's existential.
And then when you plan for 3 to 5 years, what's going to happen? I think the answer which business wants to look from a CIO at the board level is basically, I don't want to hear a no. I want to hear a yes for any situation, however complex it is, for you to provide technology.
Couldn't
And that's
agree.
going to be one of the dynamic shifts. Second is there is going to be a wave of mergers and acquisition in various industries which are going to be rampant because there are certain successful ones, some not so successful. So obviously there could be, and when you look at the India story, there is huge amount of investments coming in.
Of course.
And the only sector globally, I feel India is in great demand where your investments are going to have specific returns. And the consumerization of every product is going to be leveraged in a big way. Another thing is, Arjun, last note on this particular point is that today, manufacturing organizations, a lot of industries were relying on external tie-ups or external exports.
Indeed.
But the thing is overturned into internal consumption. And that is a dynamic shift which we are talking about today. And that's going to add a great amount of value, and technology is going to play absolutely a leading role. Innovation, technology, plain vanilla ERP implementations, infrastructure implementations, cloud. I think those are some of the things done. I think we need to talk about what the new stuff which we are going to get.
I couldn't
The
agree
new
more with you, sir.
innovative part in every industry is going to be the focus. Thanks, Arjun.
Wonderful, but this has truly been fascinating, Sumit, Maria, sir. Thank you so very much. Unfortunately, much as I'd like to continue, that's pretty much what we have time in the segment for. Sumit bhai, thank you so much for joining us. We're truly, truly grateful. Same to you, Maria, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Arjun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all from us in this segment, folks. Stay tuned. We'll be back with the next segment in just a moment.
Thank you very much, Meherya, Sumit, and Arjun. You've uncovered true gems of insight. I'm sure all of us will appreciate those inputs. With that, time now to move forward to our next session. And for this one, I have the pleasure of inviting Mr. Srinivas Janapati, who is the Enterprise Technologies at Dell Technologies, Mr. Manmohan Ramba, who is the Data Center Solutions Architect for AMD India, and Mr. Arjun Vishwanathan, who will be moderating the session, the Chief Knowledge Officer at Strategic. Over to you, Arjun.
Hello and welcome back. I'm your host, Arjun Vishwanathan, and I've got some very, very eminent folks from Dell Technologies and AMD to carry this whole conversation of the data-driven workload transformation and the convergence that its potential has with high-performance computing forward. We've just heard eminent CIOs and IT leaders from industry talk about a lot of this, and I'm going to be taking this conversation forward with Dell Technologies and AMD essentially to understand how high performance workloads and therefore the need for high performance computing is perhaps a key component in the digitization of industry and the acceleration to innovation and competitiveness. Because in many ways, perhaps, convergence of high performance computing and emerging technologies such as AI, data analytics, the whole concept of multi cloud orchestration, and cloud computing by and large can pretty much unleash a new era which allows industry to scale computationally to build deep learning algorithms that can take advantages of high volumes of data. Clearly, such a which is in pretty much abundance. And to talk to me about all of this, please, gentlemen and ladies, put your hands together to welcome in no specific order Srinivasachari Tuksakri, Enterprise Technologist at Dell Technologies. Srini, welcome. Delighted that you could join us.
Hey, my pleasure, Arjun. Glad to be with you.
Thank you. And Manmohan Brahma, Head of Solution Architecture for AMD. Manmohan, welcome. Equally delighted that you could join us.
Hello, everyone.
Wonderful. Gentlemen, we've got an interesting 30 minutes ahead and I intend to put it to full use. Srini, with your permission, if I could come to you. You see, over the last couple of years, 36 months perhaps, the volumes of data that has been available to industry has been, well, fairly unprecedented. And what makes it interesting is that while this data may have been available earlier on, CIOs and IT leaders and lines of business leaders also are waking up to the potential that this data allows them to achieve. In that sense, Srini, when you look at industry from your spectrum of an outside-in perspective, how do you see the whole concept of data discovery and dependency mapping assist in the whole concept of workload assessment and management?
Hey, a very interesting question, Arjun. And as you rightly said, while we have always had data grow exponentially over the last decade or so, its significance on how we handle it or how it is being addressed has taken imminent or immense importance in the last couple of years specifically. This ties in very well with organizations trying to go through or traverse through their digital transformation journey. And ability to analyze the data that they've been collecting and handling at different stages. So some data, which we have seen most of it that gets generated at the edge, where the actual event is happening. How do you collect the data? How do you handle the data for probably operational reasons versus bringing in the data for a deeper analytics back into your data center or a cloud to get overall directional insights for the organization. So how the data gets generated is pretty much remain constant over the period of time, but how it gets analyzed, how it gets treated is something that has come up to fore very clearly. Organizations that I have been talking to are trying to build data policies as to how they would handle the data that comes in with respect to the kind of data, whether it is structured, unstructured, semi-structured, the veracity, the volume that actually that brings in to the output that they desire in order to give them that tactical advantage against their competitors becomes one of the key reasons. And this also defines how the data gets analyzed, basically what tools typically would be used to analyze this data. So for example, we are seeing when the data that gets analyzed at the edge needs to be analyzed real time or near real time because of operational significance. However, the data that actually comes back into the data center with multiple sources coming in the form of a data lake or so allows organizations to go ahead and build batch-based analytics to give historical trend analytics to see how the organization needs to shift its directions depending on how it's coming through. So to sum it up very clearly, how the data is being collected, how the data is being handled, and the kind of insights organizations are looking are the ones which are driving the kind of analytics or the kind of computing that organizations typically need today.
I couldn't agree more because that's a fascinating set of points that you brought up, because Manmohan, I'm going to bring that to you. From a technology perspective, see, where I'm coming from is, and let me take a step back, is that it's no longer the case that organizations perhaps don't understand the value or the potential of data. So that's taken care of. And that's like half the battle won. But from a technology perspective, with the amounts of data and like Srini mentioned, structured, semi-structured, unstructured, and a lot of it in real time, the need for organizations from an infrastructure point of view is for significantly vast computational power, because it's like the gun without the bullets clearly won't fire. In that sense, how do you see the whole concept of computation modernization from the perspective of high performance computing kind of taking shape to help organizations accelerate towards greater intelligence, scale, and agility?
So, like from past 36 months, if we look at it, the way the data has grown, it has not only grown in volume, but it has grown in terms of the variety and the speed at which it comes. So the three V, which are the pillars of any big data environment, like velocity, variety, and volume. In the past 3 years, especially during the COVID times, we have seen a tremendous increase in the data and the rate at which the data gets ingested. Now, from technology standpoint or from infrastructure standpoint, we clearly envision there is a change in the hardware systems that is required. And like, for example, the edge systems can't go something like n number of wattage or something of that sort. So it has to be extremely low powered in the range of like 200 watt to be maximum. Then when it comes to the near edge center, it will be somewhere around like 500 watt or something of that sort. And when it goes to data center, it can be somewhere around like 1.2 to 1.5 kilowatt. Now, it's a three layer of infrastructure that is required. And at the same time, the network infrastructure to connect all these devices together and the software stack to connect in a single plane is highly essential. And to overcome these challenges, at least from the network standpoint, what we have seen, like the 5G network is actually gearing up a lot. The bandwidth is going to increase significantly. So the data, what we have seen, or the velocity at which the data was coming to the systems, what we have seen in past 3 years, that is going to increase much beyond what we have seen in the past 3 years. So the present infrastructures need to be future proofed for the next 3 years, or at least like next 5 years, I will say. And at the same time, the security to process, security in terms of the processing of the data, data at rest, then data in transit, and data in use. Indeed. All the three parts need to be taken care. The second aspect, what we are envisioning is the total cost of ownership. So that in terms of the software licensing or the power and cooling around it, or the carbon emissions that you are releasing to the environment, and the actual infrastructure cost, the total system cost. So that also need to be in a controlled fashion. As these are my views as a practitioner, but as we see as an industry, we are seeing most of the semiconductor industries are actually coming up with innovative ideas, say to be AMD or our competition platforms like NVIDIA or Intel. They're all coming up with solutions which are like which are making sure that they tap into all the three these challenges, like the sustainability, the security, and the pace at which the data will be processed.
No, that's actually very, very
I'd
true.
probably, sorry, Arjun, I'd probably
Please,
add to
please,
what
Srini.
Manmohan is saying. What a brilliant point he brought out, that the type of compute will differ between where it is being deployed, and this we are seeing very clearly as well from our perspective. What I also wanted to add to that is the compute is becoming a lot more network centric.
Indeed.
We've with use of accelerators or ability to use DPUs, which leverage FPGAs at the back end to allow computing at a low wattage capability brings in that diverse ability, or brings in that ability to ingest and pass through multiple different sets of different types of data set, allowing analytics at a much greater pace while controlling power envelope.
No, that's absolutely true because one of the things that also struck me as being fairly poignant is that much of the conversation or the dialogue that we're having today is because of, and we just heard the two CIOs also speak about it, is also because of the need today or the urgency to migrate workloads between physical, virtual, and cloud infrastructures. Now, in that sense, if I could come back to you, uh, how, in your sense and in your perspective, when you look at industry, is managing the data and extracting value core to how organizations and IT leaders can actually transform workloads to become more intelligent so that they can deliver business critical applications when it is needed and in the manner it is.
So very true to what you just mentioned, Arjun. And with that, I would want to expand my answer, which I gave a couple of seconds earlier. I mean, where I
Yeah,
said that it is becoming network-centric ability to bring the data as close to a CPU so that it can be analyzed much faster. To, you know, getting or empowering my network card itself to analyze the data and handle it at a low wattage. So these are two different kinds of things that are happening at the in architectural level. How do I leverage this? The other thing that happens is, how do I treat the data that is being ingested in order to ensure that it gets analyzed the right way? How organizations today are thinking uh, you know of it, as you said, they have been collecting this data for some time. How do I leverage a certain kind of data uh, along with, correlate with something else that I already have in order to bring the efficiencies? A simple example that I have seen is the log data that organizations would typically collect. Was just to ensure the hardware is working absolutely fine,
indeed.
or probably to see if there is some issue with the hardware. How do I go and rectify it? It was more reactional data set. However, today I'm seeing organizations leverage that with the application performance metrics, and then see whether they are able to predict a hardware failure or an application failure, or increase in traffic, so that they can go ahead and shape the application delivery to optimize, uh, you know uh, to allow their customers to have a seamless experience on their application. So
Indeed.
this becomes a key area on how different sets of data actually come together to deliver a seamless experience for their customers.
Absolutely true. No, absolutely true. Because Manmohan, that's pretty much what I want to bring to you. You see, we fairly established the fact that organizations today that are on journeys towards modernization of business by itself also realize that IT and tech modernization is perhaps one of the critical pillars that will help them achieve business modernization. And amongst that is one on the whole concept of infrastructure modernization. When you look at the whole concept of workload transformation and you look at compute power that you need, from an AMD perspective, Manmohan, we've heard the term high performance computing for quite a few years now. How do you break it down into simplistic business terminology that will help folks accelerate their value orientation journeys towards high performance computing in a much more process and business oriented manner?
Yeah. So earlier, like when we used to talk about high performance computing, it was actually more of a related to scientific community, where people were doing computational fluid dynamics or computational biology or something of that sort. But gone are those days when it is just HPC is just limited to scientific computing community only.
Indeed.
Now it's a new era which has evolved of converged computing, like HPC and AI is like converged as like converged computing, we call it as. And to cater to all these requirements, there is a whole new ecosystem of ML ops has evolved, a machine learning operation cycle. So the data which gets collected from the edge which gets to the data center through a near edge system and get processed through accelerators like FPGAs, GPGPUs, and all. And then it goes on to another storage system, and from there it feeds back to the edge system. It's a complete cycle of machine learning. As an example, we can treat like a lot of electric automotives have came and connected vehicles have came. Uh, how does a vehicle will understand that a person who is walking in front of the vehicle or running in front of the vehicle is a human being of age, let us say 40 years. When you look at it, when you drive a vehicle, you can actually make out whether it is an animal or it's a person of age 35 or age 40 or 50, and accordingly you can drive your vehicle. That's the human intelligence. When we try to bring in machine intelligence onto an edge system, it's like the infrastructure has to be really extremely low powered because there is a battery attached to it, and the consumption has to be extremely low. Then a complete machine learning model comes into picture, wherein you take a data, try to infer something which is already available or pre-fed into the system. If it is not available, it will go back and send to the data center, where it will get processed through a high performance computing engine. And then through a OTA, the data will be fed back to the edge device so as to ensure that from the next time onwards, it will take care of the way it should behave. So it's a complete cycle of machine learning operations, which is converged with the high performance computing. Now, a computational fluid dynamics engine, like a vehicle, is a CFD engine. At what speed it needs to be driven in a road in Bangalore versus at what speed it needs to be driven in a New Delhi Agra highway. So it are like two different things, but it is absolutely related to the data which are pertaining to the environment, pertaining to the roads, and then the flow around which the vehicles are moving. So it's a computational fluid dynamics model which gets converged with the data that we are generating out of the edge systems. So that is how we envision like the ML ops as an integrated model for the edge and the data center high performance computing systems.
No, Fab, actually, this is increasingly, gentlemen, turning out to be fascinating, but I do have a view on the clock. We've got about 10 minutes on the clock. Srini also brings me to a very important question. We've spoken about the whole concept of data as a strategic business asset. We've spoken about how data increasingly is helping organizations and IT leaders transform workloads into more intelligent workloads. And we've spoken about the whole concept of converged computing or high performance computing, as it were. In that sense, if you kind of bring the three together, Srini, in many ways you realize that when the three kind of converge or fuse with one another, it is in a sense giving an organization the ability to be far more innovative than it ever was. In that sense, how at Dell Technologies can industry expect the same level of innovation to happen from an infrastructure and compute point of view to help them innovate faster?
Yeah,
So
no,
what's to
absolutely.
expect in the months to come, really?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, where we are seeing this ability to, analyze, ability to handle the simulations, overlap it with historical analysis to make sure that vehicle goes accident-free, whether it is in Bangalore or whether it is in New Delhi Agra Highway, very clearly. So what I'm pointing towards is companies are trying to solve bigger problems, something that they were probably envisaging sometime. Uh, a year, 2 years earlier. But then today, with the newer accelerators, with the newer IT equipments available, hardware gear available with them, they can solve bigger problems than ever before. This allows them to handle, or this allows them to go pick up the problems, whether it is towards operational efficiencies or whether it is towards creating newer products that brings in stickiness with their customers. Uh, uh, with Elan. So we've got servers or we've got server storage networking equipment geared up to help them or designed for a workload that it would be running running for. So for example, if I'm looking at working with a distributed data set, I'm looking at data which is coming in from multiple sources, but then coming into a data lake. However, if I'm able to use the compute power within the same server across the distributed data lake, it gives me enough and more uh, compute power when I aggregate them together, as high performance computing typically does, to solve a problem that I would not have been able to solve earlier.
Indeed.
Or whether I go ahead and deploy GPUs, MI250s, which are available from AMD, with Elan, to go ahead and solve problems using AI technologies to predict historical data, or to predict behavior of situation based on historical data that has been fed with. So there are gears for the workloads that are available, uh, whether it is from Dell or in collaboration with AMD.
Of course.
We can definitely sit and explain and probably have a conversation with our customers to identify the issues that they are looking to solve. And then it is a very evolving thing. Technology, it has evolved in the last 1 year. Uh, it has outpaced the evolution that it had probably been in the previous 10 years. And we see it again, and we are at this cusp of the next generation CPUs coming from AMD, probably in a month, probably a month and a half down the line, that will allow us to solve even bigger problems than what organizations can do together. So we have to build an architecture along with along with a desired outcome in mind, to ensure that we leverage the improvements that are available uh,
No,
from our
absolutely. Couldn't
vendors.
agree more, because Manmohan, I have the same question to you. Because at AMD, you have a very robust, a very strong narrative, and that just becomes stronger in your association with Dell Technologies. Now, in that sense, when you look at the next 12 to 15 to 18 months, uh, give or take, what is the innovation that the industry can expect from you to help them accelerate their journeys to a large degree?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are absolutely tapping onto the great opportunity that we have in hand. Like for Edge, we are talking to our partners like Dell, wherein we will have embedded platforms to have uh, as high as like 64 CPU compute cores at the edge itself, with the cap of the power envelope that we are thinking of for the edge. Then moving on to the data center, we're planning to have something like APUs, accelerated processing unit, which will have a GPU and a CPU together. So as from the programmability point of view, it really becomes easy from the end user. You don't have to really think through how do I offload my data to the accelerator, how do I offload my data to a FPGA or something of that sort. So
True.
APU is a combined device which will have CPUs, which will automatically offload certain amount of workloads like accelerated computing to the GPU cores. And then of course to process all those things at the network and at the connected edge, we will have high-speed networks and DPUs, wherein we can offload certain security functions or certain specialized network functions to process and move the data all across the network to our FPGAs. Now, to stitch everything, we need to have a uniform software stack. So AMD has been this year being very much focused on building up a robust software stack, which will have uh, a uniformity all across from the edge to the data center and to certain extent to the cloud, and then back to the edge. So all across, if we see the Zen cores, whatever we have in the edge, let us say if you use a laptop and with a Ryzen processor and you use an application over there, the same application is expected to run in the same fashion in the data center as well. So that's the whole purpose of having a uniform software stack all across our platform, like from CPU, GPU, APUs, and FPGAs. So that's our vision for the next.
No, fantastic, fantastic. Because like I said, I do have you on the clock. I'm going to come to both of you, but Sri, I come to you in conclusion. Therefore, is there's a very, very strong establishment and awareness and cognizance of the fact that the whole concept of high performance computing or converged computing um, as a journey towards transforming workloads with the benefit of data in India at least is on the rise and opening up very exciting opportunities for industry to create a significant amount of knowledge-based capital and intellectual property at the end of the day.
Yes.
In that sense, now for this wonderful audience that's tuning in with us today, is what is the best way to approach it? Because we've established the theory and the practice. What is the model? How should organizations, folks who are listening in, approach you to take this journey forward in a much more systematic, sustainable, viable format?
Sure, sure. And at Dell, we believe that we are one of the most simplest paths to our customers, whether it is from Dell to the customers or vice versa as well, that is from the customers to us. There are multiple ways that they can reach out to us. The first one clearly being, they can reach out to their Dell rep, who typically handles the organization from a relationship perspective. Uh, he's the gentleman who is very well, he or she is the person who's very well equipped to handle these kind of queries and then redirect it back to the team of specialists within the organization. Now this is one of the ways. The other way is if your customers, if you are already interacting with a partner of your choice, then we do have a team which addresses this route to market, that is through the partners as well. You could very well reach out to your partners, and they've got a direct connect with us, with our team backend, through which we can leverage all the opportunities, whether it is at the discovery stage, whether it is probably, we've just identified the project, or how do we choose which project is the most optimal one, which is the most feasible one. It could be a consultative approach, or it could probably be design and deploy stage as well. The good thing is, our solutions are pretty much modular in nature, so we can come in at any stage and we can help you go ahead and tackle this challenge of deluge of data, and how do we handle this to make sure that the outcome is more significant than ever before.
Absolutely. And I'm Manmohan, assuming it's the same for you also, isn't it, at AMD?
Not really. So we are ODMs. So like we are a device manufacturing company. We always prefer to
partnership route.
Yeah, we believe as a corporate, we believe to have long-term partnership. Dell has been clearly a great partner to us from, especially from the past 6 years. We have got significant amount of systems designed and co-designed for customers, and we have also designed custom systems for customers with Dell. So the best way to reach out to us, we will definitely say, is through our partners. Of course, like we do talk to our customers directly. And if there is something special system design required, we can always work together with Dell to come up with a custom system.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And like I said, very, very exciting times indeed ahead for industry. But gentlemen, that's pretty much what we have time for in this segment. Srini, Manmohan, absolutely brilliant speaking with you. And I'm sure both I and the audience stand the better for having heard your perspectives, your rich experience, and your views. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. The pleasure is mine. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That's all from your host here for this particular segment. Stay tuned and we'll be back in just a moment.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Srinivasachari and Mr. Manmohan Brahma, for that amazing discussion. Thank you, Arjun, for leading the conversation and uncovering such valuable insights. With that, it's a wrap. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you found the Enabling Business Outcomes at the Speed of Innovation webinar informative and useful. I would request you to please take a few moments of your time and fill in the feedback form. We'd love to hear your feedback and suggestions. It will help us enhance the content, structure, and delivery of our conferences. We thank you all once again for joining us today on behalf of Dell Technologies, AMD, and Strategy. Look forward to welcoming you at our upcoming conferences. Until then,